Alabama travels to Auburn. It's already been confirmed, I believe, that Auburn is going to start Ashton Daniels
Yes.
and not Deuce Knight. There was a hope from me that Deuce Knight became a main character in the college football playoff race by playing in
Which I
this
don't know how
game,
you wouldn't.
but he's going to get run. He provides something much
Should.
different than Daniels in the run game. So I think they're going to run some double quarterback stuff. But for Alabama, that ironically, this is the game DeBoer just doesn't win. You think back to last year against Vanderbilt. You think back to you think back to the Florida State game this season. Like these leaning into the rush offenses, like this fun rushing unique offenses have just given them fits the last 2 years, obviously, and then just the unranked vibe of it all. Arnold at Oklahoma last year, that was how they won the game last year. So you just think about how you win this game for Auburn. I think it's as simple as could be. Like you make this a rock fight and you just play great defense and you just keep this thing close at the end. You're able to run the ball, be able to ball control. Like you're gonna be in it at the end. Bama doesn't really pull away from anybody this
No.
season. You think back to the South Carolina game. So like this is a perfect storm for the Auburn Tigers. And oh by the way, it's I've looked at the schedule. It's pretty much standalone Saturday night under the lights in Jordan Hare. Weird things happen in Jordan Hare Stadium, folks,
Yeah.
especially in this game. And so I'm really I'm really eager for what this game is to entail.
Yeah. I the most heartbreaking thing for me is the fact that it's not Deuce Knight. Yes, it was Mercer. I understand, but he looked good. He looked good for again. It's easy to just claim that it was Mercer
He looks
against
like a better athlete than those guys.
exactly. He looked good. I would have really hoped for to see him get like significant run again. I think you're correct. He will absolutely get mixed in. I'd be shocked if he doesn't take close to like 10-inch snaps in this game. Again, we will see. But again, the interesting storyline that's going to follow this game is like Alabama has to win this game to make the playoffs. If Alabama loses this game, they are gone. They are out of here, which again opens up the door for other teams like Vandy, who we'll talk about in a minute, Texas, who we'll talk about, or who we just finished talking about here. Um, and I'm just really interested in the DeBoer factor of it all. As you had said, he doesn't win these games, and it's weird to say, but whenever he's put in like these high leverage situations, like even going back to Washington, he has not been able to win these games. So I'm just interested to see if he can kind of shake that narrative that has been following him or not. Again, this is an Auburn team. They absolutely should win this game. We will see though.
I'm looking at it here. Road.
Also, I can't wait for Cam Coleman to be a Michigan Wolverine next year. Just saying.
Okay, buddy. I'm looking at it here in 2024. Road SEC opponents, road non-ranked SEC opponents. He had 2 games last year, Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. We talked about those. He lost them. This year, he's had one, and it was the survival of South Carolina. So, and then obviously, like if I want to mix it in out of conference, they were 1-1 with beating Wisconsin last year, losing Florida State this year. So obviously, like it's just this is the recipe for Auburn to get them because they don't have the number next to their name. It just seems to not go to Boer's way, and you mentioned
No.
it. Like it's the last time we saw this team against a team with a pulse was the Oklahoma game in which they dominated that football game, but they just lose the turnover margin. They throw a pick six, and somehow, some way, lose by 2 points. And I'm interested to see Ty Simpson in a spot like this because again, you could argue has he been in a spot like this, just this rivalry Never played in it. I'm
No.
eager to find out. Where do we go next? We got three more here. Um, we'll stay with the
Vandy?
ranked on ranked.
Yeah.
I'll Vandy versus Tennessee. Uh, Vandy obviously still fighting for those playoff odds. Uh, just in the grand scheme of things, I think this is Vanderbilt fighting to say like we aren't Vanderbilt anymore. Like
Yeah.
this is a spot where they can hang in a game on the road against Tennessee, who's a top 20 team in the country somehow. I don't think they have a single. I heard the stat. They don't have a single Power Four victory against a team with a winning record, like a 500 or better record. So think about Tennessee in the landscape of this season. But Vanderbilt obviously has, the rushing ability, and I just want to leave with one stat. Their rush EPA this season is 12th, and the Tennessee rushing success rate this year is 121st. I think this is a recipe for points, folks. I think Vandy could really score. I think these are two bad defenses against two high-powered offenses in the way each defense does not want to, like, Vandy's pass defense bad against Tennessee's pass offense. Tennessee's rush defense bad against Vandy's rush offense. So I think this one has a recipe for points. Obviously, Vandy's still competing for the playoff. Maybe, maybe not. But just in the grand scheme of rivalry, they could they could be 10-2, man. Like that, and that's a pretty historic accomplishment. After they recruiting news, they flipped a 5-star from Georgia. Like obviously in the NIL era, it's easier because you just pay them more money, but that's a real deal. Like Vandy is in the we're not going back, folks, and beating Tennessee in Knoxville in Neyland is just another add to the fire.
No, absolutely. Again, in the grand scheme of just college rivalries, it is so great to have something of this caliber be back because for so long, for like the last 20 years, it has just been a rivalry dominated by Tennessee that has just been put on the back burner because Tennessee's good, Vandy's bad. There's no need to watch this. But again, finally, over the last 2 years, we're like, okay, there's some gumption to this. This is actually one of the rivalries that we now have to talk about. And again, I am really interested to see specifically what Diego Pavia's rushing line is for this game. Because again, you touched on exactly what I would have. If Vandy's success and path to victory in this game would be to just absolutely ball control the game and just run, 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 and run some more. But again, Tennessee has the ability to score at any moment right now with that that wide receiver that we saw do some already pretty gnarly stuff against a ranked SEC opponent earlier in the year. Again, it'll be an interesting game, but you had touched on the one big point that I wanted to. So
Yep. I again, this is just a send off, possibly. I mean, he'll play in the bowl game, but like a send off for Pavia. I think
yeah,
he's been, even if like the story around him has been kind of like a lot, with Manziel and his mom and Theo Vaughn. Pavia as a college football player, I'm gonna remember because like if
oh
Vandy
yeah,
continues to trend in this direction, he is just a JUCO player from New Mexico State a few years ago that kind of transformed a program, and that's just pretty crazy to think about in 2025. And then we move on to another ranked matchup: Georgia against Georgia Tech. Georgia just seems to be peaking at the right time, and Georgia Tech seems to be flustering at the right time. Georgia has not lost a game since their loss to Alabama in September. Georgia Tech is 1-2 in their last 3 games. You get into some defensive again, or Georgia's offense versus Georgia Tech defense statistic. Uh, yeah, Georgia's 11th in EPA per rush this season. Georgia Tech is 84th in the country in defense. They're 10th in dropback EPA, and Georgia Tech's defense is 81st. I think Georgia could kill them. I think Georgia could like legitimately not be stopped. Just the way they've played in some high leverage games against good defenses. All right, let's put
Yes.
them in a neutral site, which they're going to have more fans at Mercedes Benz. They are going,
Oh,
like, it
without a
is
doubt.
where the SEC title game is represented. They are going to have more fans. I don't think it's going to be split 50-50. I lean there's going to be more red in the dogs just because of what Georgia Tech did last week specifically. I think that kind of killed some momentum for their program. But this is a game that I think Georgia could kill them. And they're supposed to last year, and Haynes King has the gutsy performance that he did last year, and they go to 8 overtimes. But I think this is a recipe of Georgia's offense peaking at the right time and Georgia Tech just kind of on the steep decline.
No, I agree. Again, we disagree in terms of where Georgia Tech should be ranked. I know you're not too keen on Georgia Tech still being within the top 25. All of that stems from the Haynes King factor of it all. We'll
Mm-hmm.
get into more specifically how I feel about him in a later segment. A little teaser there for you guys. But again, you don't know the chaos that this guy brings. I was gonna touch on the 8 touchdown or the 8 overtime game that they had played last year. And again, it is really easy to look at it and say, well, again, Georgia Tech has a quite frankly one of the worst power four defenses in the entire country. And Gunnar Stockton again has been able to reel himself in from the chaotic, both good and bad, from the chaotic mess that we had seen earlier in the season to a more stabilizing force at the quarterback position, to what he is now, which is fantastic. But again, you can't rule out the Haynes King factor of it all. It kind of touches on what you had even mentioned within the Michigan OSU game. You have no clue in terms of the havoc chaos factor of it all. And two quarterbacks that kind of carry that the most is a Diego Pavia, who we had just talked about, and Haynes King.
Yep.
And again, everywhere this guy goes, there seems to be chaos, mainly in a good way for Georgia Tech. But you can have some bad there. We had seen the bad there last week. He didn't look super spectacular. But again, he seems to really get up for these kind of games. Again, I do think you're right. I think Georgia destroys them probably. But again, you don't know the chaos factor that Haynes King can bring to these games.
Yeah, and I'll say this: anytime I feel like I got a read on Georgia, a good read on Georgia, it just goes the opposite way. Like anytime I feel like
Yes.
anytime I feel like the relatively confidence in them, I think they go in the opposite direction. Anytime I'm kind of sleeping on them, they find a way. Like so,
Absolutely.